U.S. defense officials underscored its ironclad commitment to the Philippines after China's unsafe maneuvers in the West Philippine Sea over the weekend. Pentagon Press Secretary, Air Force Major General Pat Ryder, said the U.S. is going to continue to consult very closely with Philippine allies and partners in the region. Ryder also slammed China's latest actions in the South China Sea, saying that it's hugely irresponsible and unsafe when putting seamen at risk at sea. Aside from the two water cannon incidents involving PCG ships, the civilian Christmas convoy to the West Philippine Sea was also halted due to dangerous maneuvers made by several Chinese vessels targeting one of its ships. Despite China's harassment, the Atin Ito coalition declared the first event civilian-led supply mission a success, noting more missions next year. China has released a video to show its own version of the water cannon attack in the West Philippine Sea. What you're seeing is a 29-second video released by the Chinese Coast Guard. The footage shows the Chinese ship spraying the Philippine vessel with a water cannon, an act that Beijing has described as professional and restrained. In the video, you can see the resupply boat of the Philippines approaching the Chinese ship as the Beijing side fires the Philippine side with water. Shortly after, the Philippine vessel collided with the Chinese ship. Based on the video, China is claiming that the Philippines is being aggressive and that they intentionally collided with their vessels. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said that the CCG, quote, took necessary measures against the Philippine ships in accordance with domestic and international law. Own footage clearly showed, however, that the Philippine vessel BRP Cabra was actually the one surrounded by China and was much smaller than China's ships. National Security Council Assistant Director General Jonathan Malaya expressed belief, though, that the latest aggression of China in the West Philippine Sea was not an act of war, but rather a game of cat and mouse.
So we are taking this very seriously. But is this an act of war? We don't think so. No, this is just part of the cat and mouse game that China seems to be utilizing to further its own interest.
We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Diego Castro. The lower chamber approves a House resolution calling on the National Telecommunications Commission to suspend the operations of the SMNI network. The House plenary adopted the resolution which lists SMNI's violations of its legislative franchise. These include, quote, deliberately disseminating false information. The House also cites SMNI host Jeffrey Celis' admittance that his source of information on House Speaker Martin Romualdez' supposed 1.8 billion peso travel fund was wrong and not validated. Aside from fake news peddling, the resolution also mentions the network's red tagging. Aside from SMNI, Senator Risa Hontiveros also seeks a probe into reported cases of large-scale human trafficking, rape, sexual abuse, and violence and child abuse in the Kingdom of Jesus Christ under its leader, Apollo Kibuloy. In a resolution, Hontiveros says there is a group of women within the church tasked with engaging in intimate acts, such as laundering Kibuloy's clothes, bathing him, tidying his room, and providing massages. The proposed 5.7 trillion peso national budget for 2024 only needs the President's signature to officially become a law. That's after the Bicameral Conference Committee ratified the final version of the bill. Lawmakers agreed not to allocate non-security agencies with confidential and intelligence funds. This includes the Office of the Vice President and the Education Department, both headed by Sara Duterte. A special provision banning the use of contingent funds to augment the CIFs of other agencies was also adopted.
Natutuwa kami sa buong Senado at nag-agree po sila at pinatunayan nila na walang mangyayari katulad ng haka-haka na may mangyayari sa BICAM na maibabalik ang confidential fund, especially sa education. Di ito na ibalik and na-sustain ho natin yung kagustuhan din ng ating mga kababayan na iwasan na po itong confidential controversial fund.
The constitutionality of the 125 million pesos in confidential funds of the Office of the Vice President in 2022 has again been questioned at the Supreme Court. The third petition for certiorari filed by the Makabayan Bloc asks the High Court to declare as unconstitutional the 2022 fund transfer from the Office of the President to the OVP. Petitioners said the Commission on Audit should also audit the confidential funds. They also want the funds to be restituted or returned. Like the earlier petitions, the Makabayan Bloc and its former members argued that only Congress had the power to decide where the funds should have been allocated. Aside from Vice President Sara Duterte, respondents in the petition included Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin and Budget Secretary Amena Pangandaman. Just last week, the Supreme Court had already asked them to respond to earlier petitions against a confidential fund transfer.
Hanggang ngayon, hindi pa rin siya nagsasalita tungkol doon sa paggasta niya noong 125 million. Kaya ang panawagan talaga natin sa Supreme Court ay i-compel siya na sabihin, i-reveal kung paano niya ginasta in 11 days itong confidential funds na 125 million.
Let's now take a quick look at other stories we're watching. Voting tech provider Smartmatic asked the Supreme Court for a temporary restraining order against the COMELEC's decision to ban them from participating in the elections. The COMELEC earlier barred Smartmatic from joining any election-related bidding and procurement due to unresolved bribery claims in the 2016 polls. Transport Group Piston is gearing up for another strike on December 14 and 15 in protest of the December 31 deadline for PUV consolidation. Piston says drivers from Metro Manila, Central Luzon, and Calabarzon will be participating in the strike. And some good news for motorists. A big-time oil price rollback takes effect today. Diesel is cheaper by 1 peso and 85 centavos and gasoline by 1 peso and 60 centavos. Kerosene prices are slashed by 1 peso and 40 centavos. And those are the top stories of the hour. Join us again at 11:15 a.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. I'm Diego Castro. We are One News, all sides, all the time.